And here's how the liner started out looking. Nice and rusty. You can see the bottom is, well, the bottom's horrible, but let's see how it cleans up. Both pistons started out looking about the same. The one that's done now looks like this. Is it brand new? No, but sure is a heck of a lot better than it was. And all I did was soak the piston with WD-40, started out with a Scotch-Brite pad, and then after that, I followed it up with some quad-aught steel wool. Now as for the liners, here's the one I started with, and you can see it's, once again, a heck of a lot better in there. It is by no means perfect. There's staining, there's a little bit of scoring, nothing too crazy. The bigger issue with this liner is right here. I'm hoping you guys can see that. Right here, there's a line. It's cracked. If I come out to the outside, it is right here in the O-ring sealing surface. So this liner is junk, unfortunately. Now that begs the question, what do we do? Clearly we need a new liner. I can get just a liner and reuse the old piston. Do I want to do that? I don't know. It's decision time, I guess is what I'm getting at. This piston here is number 4, and I got all the rings to break loose. Unfortunately, on number 1, the oil control ring broke. So I already need rings, which are about 30 bucks. That liner I can buy just the liner for about $60, or I can get the liner with the piston and the rings for $100. So for 10 bucks more than I have to pay for these rings already, why not just get a new piston with it? That's where we're at with Carnage at the moment. So I know there was talk of a dingle ball hone in the last video, but holy cow, have you seen how expensive those things have gotten? So what I've got here is a wire brush and a piston liner. Step 1 is thoroughly lubricate the liner. Lubricated. Step 2 is insert the wire brush, and as I roll it across this piece of OSB, move the brush up and down, which will create a beautiful crosshatch effect. Now, is this the hack way of doing this? Yeah, probably is. Do I care? No. Because this is exactly what your grandpa would have done because he couldn't afford to buy new liners. So now I've got the biggest stuff knocked off, and I'm just going to jump straight to this wet dry sandpaper. This stuff is, I think, 220. 220. And I've been using the Scotch-Brite pad on the back side of it, kind of like a sanding sponge. And then same thing. I just roll it along this piece of OSB. And just little by little, slowly knock down all those high spots from the pitting. Anyway, this is kind of like watching paint dry. Let me keep doing this for quite a while. Once I get it fairly decent, I'll go from the 220 to 600, from the 600 to steel wool probably. I might just stop at the 600, we'll see. You can see how much better that's rolling. Now I'm not pushing down hard, just very light pressure, just trying to remove those high spots. So the top end you can see is actually pretty dang good. Light staining, really not scored at all. If you look at these two liners, this one here has a ton more pitting. It's all pitted in here, right here is very pitted. And there's this extra little profile at the end, which this one does not have. The other major difference, well, you can see too, there's all these extra lines, whereas this one does not have those lines. So I'm really wondering if this liner hasn't been replaced before. I took that same worn out 600 grit sandpaper, soaked in WD-40, and down in the bore there, and just kind of cleaned up the scuds that's developed over the years. Took a wire brush and just gently went around here, knocking loose anything that would prevent it from fully seating. And now we're just gonna set it down in there. You can see it sitting proud here. That's because the O-ring is sitting on that lip and it needs to be pressed down inside. So I'm gonna kind of twist it as I push it down. Look at that. That's what you want. By hand. If you were sitting here just beating on it with a hammer, chances are something's gonna go wrong. I'm not saying you're not gonna have to hit it. Before you put those O-rings on there, you should be able to drop this in the bore and just spin this liner. There should be no resistance on this thing. At least on these old Allises. We got the liner all oiled up. Same thing with the piston. Put the bearing in there, we'll see if it stays in. We got it in the ring compressor here. See if we can't just send her home. When you're doing this, you want to make sure and hold that ring compressor down nice and tight. Otherwise, one of those rings is likely to squirt out from underneath of it. There we go. Piston's in its home. All for the longest time we had a 2-cylinder Deere. We're back up to 3 cylinders now. Still waiting on the 4th. If you look underneath, you can see that the connecting rod there is around the crank. I don't know if you can see the bearing or not, but the bearing is still in there. So now I'll just get the cap, stick it up over there, throw the rod bolts in it, and tighten it down. Well, the exhaust valve here on number 3 got the best of me. The rest of these all broke loose. I'll show you later. I can't really hit it with this block of wood under there. But this one, it fought me like the dickens. I ended up having to take the keepers out and actually tapping it all the way out of the head before it would break loose. But once it did, it works great now. I just soaked it with PB Blaster, got myself a little brass punch here and just gently tapped it all the way through. So now I've yanked the block of wood out and I've got a rag sitting under that valve to keep it up all the way. And now I've just got to put it back together. Set these little keepers off to the side. We'll put those in a minute. Here's my valve spring compressor. You want to hook down pretty much as far as you can on this guy. Ideally you want it to be centered so it's pushing somewhat even on there and it's not going to shoot off at you. Like that. That's what you don't want. Once it's compressed enough that you can see that little notch in there, you can usually put it back together. Now you just take the keeper and drop it in there. That's actually compressed way too far. I'm gonna back that off a little bit. It'll help it stay in there a little better. Okay, I got one in there, and of course it spun around to the front where I don't want it. Another one in there. Come on. There we go. You can see they kind of fell into place. They look like the others. That's exactly how they go. I'll take the tension off this spring compressor. And now that valve is back together. There's all different styles of these. I prefer these because you can use them with the head on the vehicle. Clearly it's off in this scenario, but they're more versatile in that sense. Decisions were made. I shelled out a couple bucks and ordered some parts, and they're here. Let's see what we got. I will also go over the game plan with you as it has now changed. This here is going to be another set of O-rings for a liner. The funny thing is, I bought these on eBay. The guy had 3 sets. I've now bought all 3 sets. Wish I would have just bought all 3 to start with and saved $5 on shipping, but oh well. So initially the plan was to spend absolutely as little money as possible on this, which is still sort of the plan. However, I'm no longer going to be trying to reuse the head gasket and reusing some other things like I had hoped. I'm now going for a freshen up of this engine. which means brand new head gasket, oil pan gasket, because I can buy an oil pan gasket for less than the price of a tube of RTV. What is going on in this world when I can buy a gasket cheaper than a tube of silicone? I don't know. This here is more than just a head gasket. It's also a gasket set for the valve cover and the thermostat and something else I wasn't going to use. This one here should be the liner and piston. So now that I have the liner and piston, oil pan gasket, head gasket, liner O-rings. The number 1 liner got new O-rings before it went in. This liner and piston back here are for number 4. And then with this and another set that I've got sitting around somewhere, I'm gonna pull the liners for 2 and 3 and reseal those while I'm in there. I figured I might as well, for how crusty that cooling system looked, I don't wanna risk having coolant leaking into my oil instantly. You know, the motor only needs what it needs. There's no point in replacing all the liners, all the pistons, if it doesn't need it. When I had the liners for 1 and 4 both out, they were different from one another, which would lead me to believe that one's been replaced already. It's not uncommon to replace just one. This is not like some F1 engine that's gonna be going, 15,000 RPM. It maxes out at 1,500. The compression ratio is less than 6:1. So I think it'll be fine. Anyway, I'm gonna cut this video right here. We'll start fresh with the rebuild, or shall I say refresh, next time. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. If you like this series, please stick around and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Hopefully that next one, I don't know, we might get it running, but then again, let's be real, I haven't touched the carb, I haven't touched the ignition, so probably not. Maybe 2 more episodes yet. Either way, stick around for whatever's to come, and I'll see you then. Thanks.